morning, dear students. My name is Dr. Shuaib Mohammad Bhat, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of English at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today we shall be talking about barriers to reading skills. As we discussed earlier what is reading and what is reading skill. There I talked about reading. I talked about the literal meaning of reading. I talked about what reading is, what are the different definitions of reading. There I quoted some influential writers and I talked about and I shared their opinions on reading with you. Today, we shall be talking about the barriers of reading. What are the different barriers of this reading skill? So this is our topic of discussion today. As I told you earlier, reading is a very interesting skill. When it comes to learn a language, there are different skills which we need to master, which we need to learn, which we need to have our expertise on. So among those skills, one is reading and the rest is speaking, listening and writing. So these are 4 skills. These 4 skills are required to learn a language. So today we are talking about reading, we are talking about barriers to reading. So I would like to share something about reading to you so that you should know what reading is. And you should know why are we studying barriers to reading. Is it such a worthy concept to read its barriers, to read different terms or different factors associated with it or not? So we should first know what the topic is. So when we talk about reading, as discussed earlier, I would like to quote Dr. Sears. Who is Dr. Sears? Dr. Sears, he's an American children's author. He's a political cartoonist. He's an illustrator. He's a poet. He's an animator and he's a filmmaker. Dr. Sears says, the more that you read, the more things you will know. The more that you read, the more things you will know. That means reading can give you more information. Reading can give you more knowledge. Dr. Seuss says the more that you read, the more things you will know. So as long as you go on with the reading, you will go on while exploring new planets, new concepts, new ideas, new thoughts. So you will be knowing more and more as long as you go with the continuous process of reading. Then he further says, the more that you learn, and when you learn with the help of reading, the more that you learn, the more places you will go. Yes, when you read about different places, different people, different ideas, different climates, different governments, so you will have an interest. It will arise an interest in you to visit many places, to work at many places, to know many places, to meet many people, to explore new things, new ideas, to explore many places. So this all can be done if you have the habit of reading. Then I would like to quote Stephen King. Again, he's American author of horror author, then supernatural fiction, then suspense novels, suspense stories, crime novels he has written, science fiction he has written, and fantasy novels he has written. These are different genres of English literature. So what is this Stephen King speaking about, reading about books? He says, books are a uniquely portable magic. Books. By books, he means reading, to read books. It's not to have books in your almirah, to have books in your library, but not to read them. That's one and the same thing. That it's better than not to have a library when you are not using it. Why should you just make such a place? Why should you just Keep books on the racks which you're not using. So, books here means reading. He says, books are a uniquely portable magic. It is a portable magic which you can carry from one place to another place. It is such an enterprise for you which can do magic anywhere. Because when you read, you become knowledgeable. And when you are knowledgeable, you can show your knowledge anywhere. Everywhere you can show your knowledge. When you read books, you have a lot of knowledge. And that knowledge helps you to survive in any corner of the world. So books, obviously, they are a uniquely portable magic. So this is all about reading, because as I told you, the topic for today's discussion is barriers to reading. So first we should know what reading is. I told you in my previous lecture what is reading and what is the role of reading as a language skill, and what is reading, what is the literal meaning of reading. Then I talked about the importance of reading. Then I talked about different types of reading: skimming, scanning, intensive reading, and extensive reading. Now today we are just embarking. We are going to discuss about the barriers to reading. What are the different barriers? What are the different hurdles? What are the different stops? What are the different nuances in developing efficient reading? So what are these? Let's try to discover. Let's see. So the first thing which I have written here is lack of concentration. Lack of concentration is a hurdle in developing effective reading. It's a hurdle to reading. Second is uninteresting subject matter. Third is lack of motivation. Motivation plays a vital role in every aspect of our life. Then faulty reading habits. There are different people with faulty reading habits. And there are many faulty reading habits. Then one of the important hurdles is indiscriminate use of the dictionary. Sometimes we do not know how to use dictionary. That becomes a hurdle, that becomes a barrier to reading. Defective reading. There is also a defective reading. This defective reading is in some special cases. That we will discuss all these points one by one. Let's go with the first one, that is lack of concentration. Concentration is compulsory. See, right now you are attending my class, you are listening to me. If you are not having concentration here, if you are not showing your concentration in this class, you are not concentrated here, so this class is of no use to you. You will not achieve anything from this class. You will not gain anything from this class. Why? Because you are not having that concentration. The required level of concentration you are not giving to this class. So concentration is very important. Now, this lack of concentration is a hurdle in reading. Because see, poor concentration, it emanates from poor reading habits. Sometimes we are having poor reading habits. Unfortunately, sometimes we do not develop these reading habits when we are in schools, when we are reading in our kindergarten classes, when we are in our primary or secondary classes. So that is the age where we can develop or where we can cultivate this reading habit. But unfortunately, sometimes we are not developing these reading habits, so we come up with the poor reading habits. And when we are not used to reading, it often appears to be an unpleasant task when we are forced to do it. Yeah, this is not only with the reading. This is the case with all the other domains, with all the other activities. When you are not interested to do any work, if I make you to do the work forcefully, that you will not be having that concentration with that work. You will not show your true and positive attention to that work. So lack of concentration is there. When we are reading anything without concentration, that is a hurdle, that's a barrier to reading, because at that time we are not doing reading, we are passing the time. We are not deducing or we are not extracting the meaning from the written symbols when we do the reading without concentration. when we are doing poor reading. Poor reading is reading without concentration. So if we read anything without concentration, the result will be zero. Result will be we will gain no information, no knowledge, no suggestion, no information, nothing. That is simply the wastage of time. Then, and as it, there is no escape from reading. We need to cultivate an active interest in reading assignments. There is no escape. See, if there is any text I am giving to you to read, so you cannot, there are only two chances, two ways. One is you will read it and you will give me the exact answers when I ask you anything regarding that script. This is one. Second is there is no escape. Second is you will not read it. And when you do not read it, obviously you do not know anything regarding that written context. So there is no escape from reading. When you are having any assignment, when you have to read anything, there is no escape. You have to read it at any cost. So this can only be done when we are showing that concentration. Now, if we read any given assignment without concentration, if we read any assignment with poor concentration, what will be the result? The result will be that we will not be knowing anything from the written assignment because we are not showing that concentration, that interest which that written context requires. So, our concentration, it begins to improve if we consciously start taking interest in reading activity. How can we now raise? How can we improve our concentration? That is when we take reading seriously and actively. So there is only one way to improve our concentration for reading. That is to take reading seriously, to read actively, to read seriously. And we should consider reading as an interesting activity. If we are not counting reading as an interesting activity, we may not just cultivate, or we may not get that, we may not improve our interest or concentration for reading. So the first hurdle, the first stoppage, the first barrier to reading is lack of concentration. As I told you, unfortunately, there are number of readers. The readership, there is a lot of readership is there where people do not understand the text. One reason is lack of concentration. One reason is we do not take reading seriously. We do not give reading the attention which it requires. We do not consider or we do not count reading as an interesting activity. So that's why we lack interest in reading, or that is why we are unable to understand any given text or any written assignment. The first reason is lack of concentration. I hope you have understood this first one, lack of concentration. The second one is uninteresting subject matter. This is also very important, uninteresting subject matter. Sometimes we make people to read the stuff which they are not interesting, which they do not like to read. So that is a forceful activity. You cannot force people to read the text, to read the books which you are offering them. When you force them, you have to be ready for the faulty information. People cannot get good information when you forcefully make them to read. No. So this uninteresting subject matter, it forms a very important barricade to reading, a very important hurdle to reading. So this type of material selected for reading, it often influences one's reading. For example, there is a person who likes horror novels, horror literature, or there is a person who loves to read science fiction, something related to science, something related to machinery, something related to many medicines. So if we give that person a novel which is written on nature, there are chances that the person may not read that novel. There are chances that this novel may not please the reader because his area of interest is different. Same is the case if you are a nature lover. If you love to read books, articles, poems, drama, plays related to nature, so now, unfortunately, we are giving you the books on romanticism. We are giving you the books which are related to metaphysics. We are giving you the books which are related to the science fiction. So there are chances that you may dislike that novel. You may not read that novel and you may not give the exact or required attention or concentration to that novel. Why? Because that is an uninteresting subject matter. You do not have interest in science fiction. Rather, you have interest in nature. You love to explore nature. You love to read nature. You love to just turn pages of the books which are written on nature. So, uninteresting subject matter. The type of material selected for reading, it often influences one's reading. Because when you select the type of reading or when you select the type of written stuff which is according to your interests, the results may be different. You may be attaining or you may be knowing each and everything from the text. And you will try to know everything from the text. Why? Because that is your interested subject matter. That is the subject matter which you like most, which you favor most. So this selection of subject, selection of stuff for the reading is important. When we are having uninteresting subject matter, that's a hurdle to reading. And an unfamiliar subject in school or college, it may pose a serious problem to the student, and his/her reading rate would come down considerably. Obviously, when we give any unfamiliar subject to a student in a school or college, which is quite unfamiliar, as right now if we talk about our Indian classes, we deal with the regional languages. If you belong to North India, you go with the Punjabi regional languages, vernaculars, Punjabi, Urdu, Kashmiri, so different languages. If you come to the South India, we have Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, different languages are there. English, the main language, common language which is being used in our Indian classes. Now, if in the meanwhile, if I introduce anything written in German, written in French, so will you be able to read that text which is written in German language? No, yes, you are right. So you will never be able to read that text. Why? Because that is an unfamiliar subject. That is a subject which is being introduced to you in an unfamiliar language. So when we are having this unfamiliar subject, unfamiliar language, so it reduces. So what is it damages? It makes your reading rate down. You will not be able to read. Why? Because the subject is not of your interest. Subject is not of your interest, you will not read it. When you will not read it, your reading rate will come down. Then, on the other hand, if one reads a familiar subject, obviously, the reading speed would gather greater momentum. Now, you love to read science. You love to study science. Now, if I am giving you the science book, any topic of science, so you will read that. You will welcome that text. And when you read that, you will gather your reading speed will gather greater momentum. Your reading speed will improve. Your reading fluency will improve. Obviously, when you are good readers, obviously you will improve your pronunciation, your vocabulary, you will be familiar with the punctuation marks, so on and so forth. A different world is there when it comes to reading. We have different set of rules, we have different set of things to know. So I'm telling you, uninteresting subject matter, it's a hurdle. When it comes to reading, when we are having uninteresting subject matter, it becomes a hurdle. So we should always try to introduce the familiar subject matter in our classes. We should always give the books to the students, to the learners, which are of their interest. When we provide them the books, in order to cultivate this reading habit, when we provide them the books of their interest, there are chances the learners, students will read those books. And when they read those books, they are getting pleasure. When they are getting pleasure, they will read each and everything. So we should never introduce uninteresting subject matter, uninteresting books, uninteresting subjects to the learners when we want them to be good readers. In order to cultivate the habit of good reading, we should always provide interesting subject matter to our students. We should refrain ourselves from distributing or from giving uninteresting subject matter to our students. Then, the next thing is lack of motivation. Yes, lack of motivation, it makes us perform below our full potential. Sometimes, see, this happens with the students because there are people who are not having any person to guide them. There are students whose parents are not educated. There are students who are not having any person or anyone to guide them. So these students, there are chances that they fail in their life. They fail in their efforts. They fail in their endeavors. Why? Because they don't have any guidance. And when they don't have guidance, they are less motivated. Sometimes we possess the potential to do anything. But unfortunately, we fail when we are attempting that activity or that assignment. You know why? Because we are not motivated. Because there is no one who can motivate us. I can tell you right now, if I tell you you all can have good future, bright future, you all can get good jobs. If I tell you this thing, then if I give you some other examples, see, you are right now at the stage where you can shape your future. If you are sincere with your studies, if you are honest with your studies, if you improve your soft skills, if you improve your speaking skills, if you improve your subject knowledge, if you try to get good grades, if you have good information or good knowledge about the exterior world, there are more chances that you will get jobs. Now, these are the points which I spoke to you. They can motivate you. They can give you good motivation to do something good in your life. But unfortunately, see, you are the same students. Before I spoke these things to you, you were not having this idea in the mind that you all may get good jobs. Now you are again the same students. Right now you have that nerve. Yes, I can get. Now, which gave you this idea you can get the job? This motivation. The motivative sentences which I spoke to you. So motivation is necessary. It is motivation which helps you to perform your duties even above your potential. So sometimes we possess the potential to do any assignment or to accomplish any assignment, but unfortunately we cannot do that because we are not highly motivated. We do not possess that level of motivation. So we may already have the latent ability to read faster than we normally do. What we need is inner drive, the persistent desire to improve our reading rate. Sometimes, dear students, we have that ability. We have that power of reading which we require in order to read some text very faster. But we do not have that inner drive, that persistent desire. When we do not have that persistent desire or that inner drive, so we cannot read according to our abilities. We cannot perform according to our abilities. No doubt we have that latent ability to read faster. But unfortunately we are unable to read faster. Why? Because we do not have that inner drive. We do not have that persistent desire to read faster. This inner drive, one can achieve this inner drive when one is highly motivated, when one acts according to one's motivation. So the persistent drive to improve there should be a persistent drive to improve our reading rate. There should be that inner drive, that curiosity that hunger. It should be the hunger of reading things. It should be the hunger to know how to be a good reader. And this hunger can be satiated only when we read more and more stuff, when we read more and more written content. Then, now those who prepare for competitive examinations are so motivated that they develop greater reading speed. Now, people who are preparing for competitive examinations, obviously they are the people who are highly motivated. They motivate themselves that we are going to appear in the exam and we will get success. So if you are a motivated person, you are a motivated boy, motivated girl, there are chances that you can develop greater reading speed. Why? Because you are a motivated person. Because you think, yes, I'm a good reader. When you think I'm a good reader, you try to be a good reader. And when you try to be a good reader, one day you become a good reader. So this is the practice of becoming a good reader. First, you should count yourself a good reader. Then you should try and practice to be a good reader. And when you count yourself a good reader, when you try and practice to be a good reader, obviously you become a good reader. So motivation is essential. Lack of motivation is a hurdle. It's a barricade to reading. One should be motivated. One should have the motivation that I can read. I can read the lengthier of the texts. I can read the toughest of the words. I can read the complex sentences. I can read poems. I can read whatever is. I can read everything which is written. Even if it is written in verses. Even if it is written in the prose. So you should be highly motivated. Yeah, that we can read anything. When we are highly motivated, obviously one day we will be good readers. Then there are faulty reading habits. These faulty reading habits, there are also these barricades. There are also barriers to reading. Faulty reading habits. The first one is eye fixation. What is eye fixation? So see better, when we read, while reading, one is unable to progress well beyond a thought, expression, or word. It's regarded as eye fixation. Sometimes when you read, you become stagnant. You are reading a word which is unfamiliar to you. You are reading any term which is ambiguous to you. You are reading a statement which is paradoxical to you. So you are not getting the exact meaning of a word, a thought, or expression, or a word. So when you make a halt there, a pause there, this is called eye fixation. Because you are fixing your eyes on a particular word, on a particular sentence, on a particular idea. So this is often caused because many of us are not trained for good reading in schools. And this cripples our reading efficiency. Why does this happen? Why don't we move? Why are we making ourselves stagnant with some particular word or words or idea or ideas or a thought or thoughts? Because we have not been given good training of reading in schools. This is happening. Sometimes we are not given good training of reading in schools. And when we do not have good training of reading, obviously it will have its impact on our reading skill. And this eye fixation, it cripples our reading efficiency. It bruises our reading efficiency. It makes our reading efficiency very poor. So now what we should do, we should not go with this eye fixation. We should not make ourselves to stop with a certain word, with a certain idea, or with a certain expression. Because it, as I told you, it cripples our reading efficiency. Now, to overcome this eye fixation, what we should do, we should try to divide a sentence into certain thought units. And don't fixate on a particular word or expression for a long time. In order to remove this eye fixation, In order to remove this eye fixation, what we should do, we should try to divide a sentence in different thought groups. And we should not fixate our eyes on a particular expression. For example, there is a paragraph or there is a lengthy sentence which you are not assimilating, which you are not understanding. So rather, concentrating on a particular word or particular phrase or expression, we should divide that sentence in different thought units. So that is the best way to understand the word, and that is the way by which we can improve or by which we can eradicate this eye fixation from us. Because eye fixation is a faulty reading habit. To fixate our eyes on a particular expression, it's a faulty reading habit. When we are reading anything, we should not fixate our eyes on a particular phrase, on a particular thought or expression or a word. Rather, we should read with a flow. We should read with consistency. So when we fixate our eyes on a particular word, that's called faulty reading habit. And this faulty reading habit is again a barrier to reading. Then we have the next one, that is regression. This is again an important point to discuss, regression. Now see, just like eye fixation, this regression, it also creeps into our reading habits, again because of lack of training. First, I'll tell you what regression is. See, sometimes we are unable to understand an idea. And when we are unable to understand an idea, we habitually go back to the part where it occurs in a passage. For example, you are reading a paragraph, and in that paragraph, you are not able to just understand an idea. So what we are doing? We are making a regression. We are going back to the first sentence where from this idea occurs. So when we are making these continuous regressions, it's a faulty reading habit. This continuous regression is not allowing us, is not letting us to go forward. Rather, we have become dependent on this regression. So it shows the incompetence in reading and comprehension skills. A person who likes these regressions, a person who goes back again and again, goes back to the previous sentence or goes back to the start of the sentence, is considered as an incompetent reader, or is a person who is not competent at reading and in comprehension skills. So as I told you, just like eye fixation. What is eye fixation? To fixate our eyes on a particular idea, expression or word. So eye fixation is a hurdle to reading. Same is the case regression. How does regression occur? When we are not able to understand any idea. What we do? We habitually go back to the part where it occurs. So this going back to the part where it occurs or where it started is called regression. And regression is not beneficial for reading. Regression it's a barrier to reading. So enhanced reading habits with enthusiasm and interest can help to overcome this problem. Enhanced reading habits. One is normal reading habit. Second is enhanced, where we use different strategies of reading in order to enhance our reading habit. So these enhanced reading habits and enthusiasm, that energetic way of reading, and interest, these things can help us to improve, to overcome this problem. So regression is, again, I talked about regression. It's the barrier to reading. It's barrier because it's not allowing a person to move forward. It makes a person stagnant at one place. A person tries to find the meaning of one idea, one word or one expression. So in order to find the meaning or in order to understand this idea, a person is having the habit to go back, to go the start of that sentence or that idea or information. When we do this, it's called regression, and regression is a barrier to reading. This is a faulty reading habit. One should not make regressions when one reads any text. Then we have vocalization. to read louder. Vocalization. It is the tendency, or it is a type of reading where we make sounds of the words while reading. When we read, we shout, we make sounds. We feel that while by speaking, we may retain the information. So on the other hand, there is lip reading. On the other hand, we read, we are making lip movements. So we are moving our lips voicelessly in a way as if we are speaking, as if we are talking. So this is vocalization. And vocalizing, how is this vocalization a faulty habit of reading? It reduces your reading down considerably, and is a habit you should break if you intend to become a speed reader. If you want to become a speed reader, you should not be the victim of this vocalization. Why? Because vocalization, it reduces your reading. See, when a person speaks and at the same time understands and listens, this is a simultaneous activity. Almost a person is doing three activities simultaneously. One is speaking, other one is understanding, third one is listening. Whatever we speak, we understand it. Obviously, God has given us ears. We learn, we listen it, and at the same time, when we read, we listen, we understand it. So, vocalization is the simultaneous activity of three activities. One is your vocalizing when you speak, when you pronounce words or sounds. Second is when you listen it. Third is when you understand it. So it is difficult for a person to go with these three activities at the same time. So this sort of activity, it reduces our reading speed. It makes our reading down considerably, and it is a habit which one should break if you want to become good readers, speed readers. You should you should just break this habit of vocalization. Then, reading aloud or turning the head from side to side. Reading aloud or turning the head from side to side. Reading aloud and moving the head from time to time or side to side, or gliding a pen or pencil or scale through the text, it tends to affect the understanding of the concept. When we are reading anything and we are gliding our head from one place to another place, and when we are gliding a pen, pencil or scale through the text, so it becomes difficult for a person to understand the concept. Because as I told you, simultaneously a person is doing a lot of activities. A person is speaking. I mean a person is reading. Then a person is moving his head from one place to another place, from one moment to another moment. Then a person is gliding the pen, pencil or scale. So all these activities, they make it difficult for a reader to read carefully. Ideally, what we are doing, our eyes should see and our mind should read the text before us. What is the ideal way of reading? Our eyes should see and our mind should read the text before us. That is which we call as sub-vocalization. It is the style of reading where we do not shout, where we read inside our mind. So where we look upon this written symbols, but our mind reads. So we should avoid reading aloud and at the same time moving our head and at the same time gliding pen, pencil or scale around the text. Because this kind of reading is a barrier to reading. This kind of reading is called faulty reading. When it is faulty, obviously that is a barrier to reading. Then we have the next important point, that is indiscriminate use of dictionary. Indiscriminate use of dictionary. What is this indiscriminate use of dictionary? What sort of discrimination people are doing with the dictionary? See, a lot of damage to reading habits is also done because of the lack of guidance about the proper utilization of dictionary. A lot of damage to reading is done by this I can say unfamiliar use of dictionary. by this poor utilization of the dictionary. We do not know how to use dictionary, and this not knowing how to use dictionary, it creates a problem. It creates a severe damage to reading. There are some students who are misled into cramming the dictionary they possess. Yeah, there are people who want to just write down all the words, who want to remember all the words. So another misuse of dictionary is the tendency to refer it to the moment, to it the moment one comes across a word one finds difficult to understand. There is one more thing which is faulty. One is, for example, when you are reading a text and you find a word which is difficult, you do not know the meaning of that word. And at the same time, you stop the activity of reading, you are opening dictionary, you are finding the meaning and you are writing down the meaning. This is considered as a faulty way of consulting dictionary. Because when you consult a dictionary while reading, you do not feel this thing or you do not have the idea of this thing. You are yourself hampering your process of reading. You are yourself putting a stagnation in your reading process, in your reading activity. So, there are different ways by which we can misuse dictionary. One is the cramming of the dictionary, cramming the dictionary. Second is to use the dictionary at the same time when we are encountered with any word which we do not know. Then, repeatedly looking into the dictionary for every such word also makes us wary of the whole process of reading, and we tend to give up very soon. Yes. When you consult a dictionary after every one or two or three words, and when you are reading a page, when you consult dictionary more than 10 times or 15 times, so you will become very tired, you will become very weary, you will become very lazy or clumsy. And what will be the result? The result would be you will give up reading. And when you give up reading, obviously, you are hampering, you are bruising your reading activity. Or if this unintentional or if this unfamiliar use of dictionary becomes the cause of your stoppage in your reading process, then we can say this indiscrimination use of reading is a barrier to reading. So we should properly use dictionary. How can we use properly dictionary? So we should go through this reading assignment without taking breaks. The best way is to encircle the words we are unable to understand. If a person is not able to understand any term, any expression, any phrase, any word, it's better to encircle it rather than stopping the reading process and checking the word from the dictionary. So it is better to encircle it. Then, once you have finished the entire assignment, then we can turn to the dictionary to understand the meaning of that word or of that expression. So what is the best way to use dictionary? This is the way by which we cannot hamper our reading process. The best way to use our dictionary is that we should encircle the difficult words. If you feel there is any difficult word, we should encircle it. And once we are done with the written assignment, once we are done with reading, then we can open dictionary and we can check the meanings of those words one by one. This is the process by which we cannot hamper our reading skill, our reading ability. Then, never stop amid your reading to work in a word. When we are working on a word, we should not stop in between. When we are reading a word, we should not stop in between. Rather, we should move forward. And the context will make the meaning of strange words clear. Sometimes you are reading a context, you are reading a paragraph. And in that paragraph, you feel there is a word which you couldn't understand. So you should not stop there. You should move on. You should go on with your reading. Because the rest of the context may provide you the justification of that word. It may clarify you the meaning of that, or it may give you the meaning of that word. So we have this indiscriminate use of dictionary. Indiscriminate use of dictionary is a barricade to reading, is a barrier to reading. We should not enforce, or we should not encourage this indiscriminate use of dictionary. What is indiscriminate use of dictionary? It is to check dictionary after every difficult word. It is to start cramming the dictionary. It is to stop reading and go on to the dictionary and consult a dictionary after every ambiguous term. Then what we should do? One should go with the reading with the speed in a flow, and one should encircle the difficult words. And at the end of the at the end of the text, one can check the meaning of these ambiguous or difficult words. And there is one more provision. When you are reading any text, no doubt there may be any term, any word, any phrase, any expression which you may not be getting, which you may not be understanding. So you should not stop there. You should not make a pause there. You should go on with the reading, because there are chances that the rest of the text may clarify the meaning of that word to you. So this is the best way of using dictionary. The use of dictionary which can improve your reading skill. That is to check the dictionary at the end of the text, not in between the text. Then we have defective reading. Defective reading. Defective reading, this happens in some special cases because it is related to ophthalmic and neurological cases. There are people who are having some eyesight problems like short-sightedness, long-sightedness. So these people are not able to read clearly. As I told you, this is happening with some special cases. Right now we are talking about reading, barriers to reading in general. In general, we are not right now talking about barriers to reading in certain specific cases. But this idea came to me. I thought I should speak this thing to you as well. So defective reading happens from two sources. One is ophthalmic, other is neurological. Ophthalmic means defective eyesight. Like there are people having short-sightedness and long-sightedness. These people, they are not able to read clearly because obviously they are going through eyesight problems. When a person is suffering from eyesight problems, obviously this eyesight problem is a barrier to reading for him, because that person is not able to read because of this eyesight problem. Then stammering and stuttering, or stammering and alexia, these are neurological. Alexia is a neurological defect. It is unable to read because of the damage done to the brain, human brain. So stammering and alexia, these are neurological defects as ophthalmic or as short-sightedness and long-sightedness related to ophthalmology. Same is the case. Stammering and alexia, they deal with the neurological defects for which medical treatment or counseling should be recommended. There are some problems related to mind. When a person is suffering from those problems, he or she stammers. He or she is not able to read carefully. So medical treatment or some counseling is needed for such treatment. The problem of partial or total deafness also impedes reading. Now there are people who are partially deaf or who are totally deaf. Obviously that impedes reading. So these are 5. These are perhaps 6. These are the 6 important barriers to reading. I hope you all have understood it. I want to just repeat all these 6 barriers to reading. So these are the major hurdles. So when we talk about these hurdles, we have the first one, that is lack of concentration. So sometimes this lack of concentration becomes a barrier to reading because sometimes we are not able to read carefully. We are not able to read with fluency. We are not able to read with speed. because we lack concentration. When we lack concentration, we are not able to read clearly. And when we are not able to read clearly because of lack of concentration, that means this is a barrier to reading. Then we have uninteresting subject matter. As I told you, sometimes we give our students uninteresting subject matter. So your subject, your content describes whether you read it clearly or not. If it is according to your interest, you will read clearly. If it is not according to your interest, you will give up. So when the subject given to you is not according to your interest, there is no chance that you can develop or improve reading skill. Then there is lack of motivation. Sometimes we are not having that motivation. Motivation is essential. It's important. It's compulsory. We as students, you as students need to be highly motivated. When you are motivated, then you can improve in your studies. So sometimes we do not have that motivation for reading. And unfortunately, when we are having less motivation regarding reading, there are chances that we may not read carefully. And this is again a reading barrier. Then faulty reading habits that I talked about: fixation, eye fixation, regression, vocalization. And I talked about loud reading and turning head from one side to another side. This is again a barrier to communication. Then I talked about indiscriminate use of dictionary. Sometimes we make indiscriminate use of dictionary. We do not know how to use dictionary. We are opening the dictionary many a times while reading, and that hampers our reading. So that makes us weary or tired for the reading. So what happens? We give up the reading activity, and this is again a barrier to reading. The last one I talked about, defective reading. Defective reading is for some special cases, like as I quoted ophthalmology, and I talked about neurological disorders or neurological defects. There are people having short-sightedness or long-sightedness. They are not able to read carefully. And there are people having some neurological disorders. They are not able to read clearly. So these are the main points. These are the main barriers to reading. I hope you all have understood it well. So in the next class, we shall be talking about some different topic. Till then, goodbye. Take care.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.